Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Tuesday morning. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. One of the ongoing themes, clearly, with the Democrats is this relatively successful attempt they've made to redirect by way of disinformation that somehow it's Trump and Republicans that are trying to cover up for Epstein. And listen, I'm not here to claim that Pam Bondi has handled things well. I think she's been, in terms of messaging, the most detrimental member of the current administration. But it's so easy how people forget the past and the years and years and years that Republicans were screaming about Epstein while Democrats were acting as if it were nothing whatsoever. Trump out there. It's amazing some of the stuff that circulates as if it was a hidden gem that rarely anyone saw 50 years ago. And I've seen recirculating a video of Trump being interviewed back when he was running against Hillary and talking about it was Trump back then talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and this guy is going to be a real problem for Democrats. And he specifically said Hillary Clinton may find herself in trouble because of her relationship and Bill Clinton's relationship with Epstein. And this is recirculating as if it's, like, oh my gosh, well, who knew? Well, we all knew back then. I mean, that was the theme. It was Republicans. It was Trump saying we've, got to get to the bottom of this. And you listen to Democrats with the help of the media now, and they have managed to successfully make a lot of people completely forget that. And either believe or, willingly or because they've been manipulated into it, that Epstein was something that no one knew about until Democrats decided to lift the lid on it because Donald Trump was trying to keep it covered up. And again, I'm not here to claim that the handling of all of this by the administration under Pam Bondi has been handled well. It certainly has not. You can argue all day long about for what reasons, but the one thing that is in complete defiance of reality and recent history is this idea that Epstein was unknown, and part of the reason he was unknown was because Donald Trump was keeping it all covered up. But by gosh, those pesky Democrats are just so interested in getting to the bottom of truth and defending victims of sexual assault that they've just been tenacious in their battle to make sure that transparency rules the day, and that's the only reason we know anything about this. It is so contrary to reality. And one of the steps, part of what has helped them with a disinformation narrative is the fact that, there's just tens of millions of pages of information that they have to go through line by line because you can't legally, there's very specific legal guardrails as to what information can and cannot be released when it comes to victims or potential victims. And the Senate, a lot of appointees that are needed, that are still sitting empty, that are instrumental in investigations like this are still being held up. And so the FBI, Department of Justice, they still are shorthanded. And so you combine all of that on top of everything else they're trying to do. And as much as they want to make it seem as if there's just a vault of papers, they're just sitting there waiting for release, but it's being slow walked, that's just inaccurate. In order to, I don't think the purpose is necessarily to accommodate the wishes of Democrats as much as it probably is to publicly try and diffuse some of the disinformation. The Department of Justice has said, okay, the stuff that still has yet to be redacted, members of Congress, or at least certain members of Congress, Republicans and Democrats, can come to the Department of Justice and view through them. If you really think that there's something here nefarious that's being covered up, you are more than welcome to, prior to the redaction for the release of the public. Now, here's the problem with that. And just prepare yourself, and in fact, it's already coming. There's a headline, Just the News, Raskin, DOJ improperly censored name in Epstein files. The Democrats are going to start doing what Adam Schiff did regarding behind closed doors depositions regarding Russiagate. Knowing that the general public is not privy to the same information that they are allowed to see, they can come out and completely misrepresent it. We sat through months, if not years, of Adam Schiff coming out to the television cameras and saying, now, I can't tell you what's being said in these steps, but don't you worry, it's all going to come out. The proof is there. You'll see. I'm telling you what I'm hearing and the evidence that I'm seeing that you're not allowed to see yet. It's absolute proof that Donald Trump and Putin were coordinating with each other in order to steal the election. And he said that knowing that in that moment, the American people had no ability to validate what he was saying. That is exactly what we're going to see with this allowance of Democrats to come and check out the unredacted, yet to be redacted paperwork, evidence, whatever you want to call it, regarding Jeffrey Epstein. They're going to go in there, they're going to come out, and they're going to make it sound as if there's stuff in there that should be released. I'm telling you, we've seen it, and I can't tell you what it is, but boy, once that comes out, I'm telling you what, this administration sure is going to be in trouble. I just can't tell you what it is, but you just wait for it to come out. They will utilize the inability of the general public to yet see this information because it has yet to be redacted or unredacted. They will play off that. That will be used as a weapon in their disinformation campaign. Now, the cynical brilliance of their plan is you think to yourself, well, eventually, right? I mean, this will come out and it'll prove them to be wrong. Well, first off, that doesn't matter. Look at Adam Schiff. That guy, for spearheading one of the single largest disinformation campaigns on not just the country but the world, got elected to the U.S. Senate by Democrats. So that level of dishonesty and corruption, if you're a Democrat, you get rewarded handsomely for it. Aside from that, however, there will be redacted components. There has to be. It's the law. If there's information about about victims that is the law requires it to be redacted, well, they can easily then say, well, see, now that shouldn't be redacted. Now, I can't tell you how I know that. But not everything in here is a redaction regarding actual victims. I know because I've seen this stuff, but I can't tell you exactly what it is because I'm not allowed to. These people don't care about victims. These people don't care about the truth. Like everything else, up to and including children who are kidnapped off to an island to be sold off for the purposes of men having sex with them, those individuals are only important to them if they can re-victimize them as using them as political weapons against their opposition. And unfortunately, the reason they do this is because it works, at least with a portion of the population. Just drive by any protesters in Springfield, the anti-Trump people, be it in front of the VA or otherwise, and there's always going to be one holding a sign, something about the Epstein files. These are useful idiots. And some of them know it, but they're okay with it. Weather in a moment. Right now, the latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well with a high near 67. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 56. And for Thursday, mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
Democrat Raskin, DOJ improperly censored name in Epstein files. Comments coming as Trump officials, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, face scrutiny over their links to Epstein. The Democrat from Maryland yesterday said the Department of Justice improperly shielded the names of individuals in the Epstein files after reviewing the unredacted documents personally. This is what you expect. This is what I was talking about. This is the Adam Schiff Russiagate playbook. You go in to view information that only you and a select few are privy to, and you know that you can say whatever you want and it can't be fact-checked. Not that it would. And then you go out to the cameras, you go out on the shows, and of course they'll be more than welcome by the media to make claims that in no way, shape, or form can be verified. And, you can't necessarily criticize the administration for giving the Democrats this opportunity because regardless, prior to giving them access to the unredacted, yet to be redacted material, they're out there claiming that, cover up. And so, okay, fine, you can see it. And so damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's just the price you pay in dealing with a corrupt political party and depraved individuals that have absolutely no moral compass. Raskin was one of several lawmakers who viewed the full, uncensored documents after the DOJ released millions of heavily censored documents to comply with the law that Donald Trump signed. Quote, I was able to determine, at least I believe, that there were tons of completely unnecessary redactions in addition to the failure to redact the names of victims, and so that's troubling to us, he told The Hill. There's no way you run a billion-dollar international crime child sex trafficking ring with just two people committing crimes, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. No way. It doesn't work like that, and of course that's what Republicans have been saying all this time. One of the components to this that does not get discussed, and the lack of talking about it, I think even because of that, those who are interested in what's going on and do want to get to the bottom of this don't realize that there were a tremendous number of victims who took settlements because they didn't want their information to become public, or they just wanted it to be over, or they felt that that was the only punishment that anybody responsible would actually, be held accountable. And so, hey, this is better than nothing. Whatever the motivations were, that was a decision that a lot of the victims made. They didn't want this part of it to occur. The payout came, and there may have been a number, but one of them specifically, one of the massive banks that he was doing business with, and it became very clear based off the evidence that they knew something funny was going on, but they weren't reporting it. And so there were massive payouts to a number of these victims that was their way of resolving it. They said, that's what we want. We don't want anything else to do with this. We don't want any trial. We don't want, on our behalf, of course, this being all the different victims individually, we don't want to go through any sort of trial. We don't want a media spectacle. This is what we want. And so, of course, there were some, one of which died in New Zealand or Australia. I think it was last year. There were still some out there that did want more than that, or in lieu of that. But that component to this oftentimes gets left out. And so it leaves us with this sense that there are all of these victims out there, and none of them have gotten any form of justice, that none of them have in any way, shape, or form felt as if anyone was held accountable. And that really isn't a full, accurate portrayal of what is going on. Now, some will also argue, hey, if somebody commits a crime and the victim wants to settle on it on some capacity, that shouldn't necessarily mean that the government then says, okay, well, we're not going to charge you. People should not be able to buy their way out of crimes simply by paying off the victim. But whether one agrees with the fact that some of these victims decided that was the route they wanted to take or not, that is an important part of this that really doesn't ever get discussed. Now, one of the Democrats, and this is just sort of the last component on this I want to talk about today. We've talked about this delegate, Stacey Plaskett. She represents the Virgin Islands in Congress. So she goes through the motions of everything, and she's there, and she gets to ask questions and give speeches, but when it really comes down to it, she doesn't necessarily have the same full authority as a voting member of Congress. But she is on committees. In fact, this is the delegate that it was revealed she was in real time during a committee hearing in which Cohen that former attorney of Donald Trump's. He was brought to testify, and this was after he turned on Trump, and so Democrats really smelled blood in the water and thought, okay, now we're going to get some dirt on Trump now. We're going to have this guy testify, and we would learn that this Democrat delegate from Virgin Islands was in real time getting text messages from Epstein on what questions to ask this guy to help nail Donald Trump. Now, of course, the level of absurdity of once again painting Trump as somehow an ally of Epstein and implicated in these things, when one, Epstein did not like Trump so much that he was coaching in real time Democrats, or at least this one specifically, on questions asked during congressional hearings. If Epstein had something on, if Trump, clearly he wanted to get Trump. I know some of this is rehashing. But if Trump was implicated and Epstein wanted Trump nailed, he probably would have just released that information, or at the very least given it to Delegate Stacey Plaskett, instead of coaching her on what questions to ask Cohen during congressional testimony. Now, I bring this up not because I'm rehashing, but one of the members of Congress on the Democrat side of the aisle that has been very adamant about getting all of this information out as quickly as possible is Democrat Ro Khanna of California. And he has gone so far as to say, anyone and everyone that had any sort of involvement, by gosh, we need to haul them before hearings. We need to get to the bottom of it. Well, Stacey Plaskett, aside from what it is that we know she was doing and conspiring with Epstein in real time by a text message during those hearings, she also, according to some of the new information, was trying to get Epstein to help her compile a database of phone numbers and email addresses and home addresses to help her campaign and other allies of other races. Plaskett wrote at the time, "This is the most important group to poll for messaging and later phone banking for support and get to the polls," adding that the list would help candidates decide what political position to take and assist messaging and campaign work, which is a whole another offshoot about unprincipled people. Here you've got a Democrat in Congress asking Epstein for help to poll people and to create a database so they know as candidates what positions to take on issues. So now the question is Ro Khanna going to call for his colleague to be called up before a congressional hearing to answer for this? I think most of us understand that the answer is probably no. Because once again, it's not about the truth. It's about utilizing this as a political weapon against opposition. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. All right, a couple of different things. KSGF.com. Now, of course, that's a great place for you to stream online should you want to go that route to listen to the station. Also, we do have the podcast there. The KSGF app is a very convenient way to access that stuff as well. Also, register to win Lunch Bunch at Godfather's Pizza on any given Wednesday. If you are a winner, then you and up to 5 of your friends or coworkers, family, whomever you choose, will join Sarah and me at the Springfield Godfather's location for their all-you-can-eat buffet and salad bar. And also, Valentine's Day just around the corner. Valentine's Day sweetheart dinner at the Vineyard Market in Ozark, Friday and Saturday. You can win a dinner for the Friday, February 13th. 3-course chef-curated dinner and wine pairing, and if you've been to Vineyard Market, you know that they do it absolutely upright. So it's a great opportunity for you to have a fantastic dinner and some drinks and a romantic evening, all on Vineyard Market in Ozark. You can register for that at ksgf.com.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozark's first meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well with a high near 67. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 56. And for Thursday, mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
Did you remember to bring in your good headphones?
I did! Thanks a lot for texting me.
Yes, I did.
I gave you one job yesterday and you failed.
Yes, my job was to text you at home at night to tell you to remember
specifically at
to bring
5:30 p.m.
your headphones in.
Why? I said, now don't forget to text me at 5:30 p.m. I don't know why 5:30,
I
but
didn't know either, but
it
I
just
thought
sounded right.
I thought maybe in your head mentally at 5:30 that's when you're closed for business, and so if it didn't come by that time, then it would go just
It's business
yeah,
day.
next business day
I
and
brought him.
roll over. But well, I'm
I
glad
know I can hear.
I have these headphones that I mean they're not the best. I mean they're decent headphones that I kind of forget, and they are Bluetooth, but they're also wired. And yesterday I was just wearing them because I went for a walk. The weather was nice, and so I put on a podcast, and I was like, why don't I use these at work? And I'm thinking about getting one of the, like a Bluetooth jack that I can put in over
Ooh,
here.
that would be nice.
Yeah, and then I won't be wired. I don't have to worry about the wiring. Maybe that will be on my list of things to do today. Is
I
to
like
to
that.
go
Yeah,
get one of
do
those.
that.
And yeah, I might as well use because at other than yesterday, I use it just once every few months or so. If it's on a Friday or Saturday in the evening, and the wife and girl child go to bed, and I want to watch a movie or maybe play, Call of Duty or something, where but I don't want to disturb them, and I'll use them then. But that's rare itself. Might as well use them. I think I got them last Christmas, perhaps, or at some point from my wife. And then I realized, actually, after I wore them yesterday and then they were sweaty, I was like, oh, I think these are the girl child's. Now I know why I had a hard time connecting it up to my Bluetooth. I was like, why am I having such a difficult time with this? And then when I was putting them down next to the others, like, oh, wait a minute, I think these are mine.
Way to go.
Very confusing day yesterday.
Clearly.
I want to get the precise number here. I was gathering some information regarding Hotel of Terror yesterday. One, the signatures. So there were over 300 signatures turned in yesterday. This is the second call, if you will. There was roughly 1,200 signatures needed in order to give the people a vote to block the city from destroying Hotel of Terror. And the signatures were turned in, and they're like, oh, some of these don't count, which is not unusual. People who sign those things oftentimes do it erroneously. You have to be a registered voter in the city, and so they go through, and then if people aren't registered voters in the city, then they knock them off, which is why when you gather these signatures, you should always gather many, many more than you are actually going to need. And while they did gather more than needed, it wasn't quite enough, and roughly 120, or may have been 120 on the dot, was needed. And when that occurs, the way it works in Springfield is you are then given another window of time, a much shorter window of time. I think it's 9 days, or I don't know, a couple weeks, somewhere around there. But you're given a shorter window of time in order to gather the signatures that you need. And around 120 were needed. They turned in over 300. And so now the same process will occur, in which the city's going to go through and find which ones that they can throw out because they aren't legit. And then hopefully there will be enough left over to where it will then go to a vote by the people. The council will also have the decision to overturn their own vote on that, which is something that they did in the past. I suspect that they won't do it this time around. So at the same time, Hotel of Terror was in the news because of the attempt to, I don't want to say burn it down, but there was a call to 911, and there was an individual trying to break in and light the place on fire. Now, from the information I have, this is someone that the owner has no idea who this person is. He's never seen him before, and he did not do really anything other than minor damage to the Hotel of Terror. Now, the guy, he was arrested, and let's see, is this the right article I have here? Michael Howerton, 55, was arrested on suspicion of second-degree arson, according to the release. As of yesterday, he was still in the Greene County Jail. According to the probable cause statement filed in Greene County Circuit Court, a fire department employee was first to arrive, saw a small fire on the front door of the building where they observed Howerton allegedly pouring a liquid from a gas can onto the fire. Video footage showed Howerton initially attempting 3 times to light a fire using a clear glass bottle labeled Sea Ice Vodka. Have you ever heard of that vodka?
Mm-mm.
It's probably because it's so high shelf that it's well beyond your tax bracket. I'm sure that vodka, Sea Ice Vodka. In fact, because I'm what?
A whopping $3.49.
Yeah, I know. Well, like a full bottle is under $10. I looked it up too. I did the exact same thing. Yeah, one of the little flasks, what is that, 375 milliliters is under like around $3.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're right, it is out of my tax bracket there.
yeah. Well, I looked up the description because I thought, this sounds really good. And it actually, my first thought was, this is probably a completely inaccurate way to look at it, but I thought, well, that must be it. The fact that it did not successfully act as a flammable made me think it wasn't very good vodka. Now, I don't know. That is probably not scientific at all, but it just, for whatever reason, seemed to fit. And it's 40%, which I also looked that up. And I was like, at what point does an alcohol become, an accelerant, become really flammable? And everything I found said actually around 40%. So it's right there on the edge. The product description of Sea Ice Vodka reads as follows: Kentucky Sea Ice is an American-made vodka with a crisp, clean finish. As smooth as ice, this vodka's taste will leave you reminiscent of Arctic icebergs. Great for mixing or pouring over ice. This is an ideal fit for everyone. Not burning down buildings, apparently. Howerton is accused of using his feet and a large rock in an attempt to break into the door, forcibly removing the doorknob before starting the fire. According to the probable cause, each time the fire burnt out on its own, Howerton added more unknown liquid from a gas can. During an interview with the fire department, he allegedly confessed to starting the fire with gasoline he purchased for $2 at a gas station and stated he acted alone. His bond has been set for $25,000. He has a history of probation and parole warrants and pleaded guilty to driving while intoxicated in 2017. Because of the city's relentless quest to just destroy Hotel of Terror and this guy's small business in Springfield in the capacity that exists today, understandably, a lot of people thought, well, maybe this is the way that they're going to take care of this problem. That to me seems like a stretch, because I think that they feel as if they're going to break this guy, even if it goes to a vote. They're going to force him to spend money. They're going to do whatever, force him to spend his money, and they're going to make the process of protecting oneself as a small business owner in Springfield so punitive that even if somehow he ends up successful, it will be a message to other business owners: don't mess with us, because you see what he went through. You see how many years and how much money he had to spend and the attorneys he had to hire and just all of the crap that this guy, just for being a business owner in Springfield, had to go through. You really want to go through that? You really want to challenge us? You really want to mess with us? It's that residual messaging that is just as valuable to the city of Springfield as the issue itself. So to me, it just doesn't seem like there would be any sort of reason, other than if you just had somebody that was on the side of the city's attempt to eminent domain this guy, and they're just, I mean, just really hate that this business owner is fighting back, and they're just so filled with rage that they're like, I'm going to hire somebody to burn that place down out of vengeance. That just doesn't seem likely. That being said, it does seem weird. Like, what was this guy trying to do? It sounds as if, according to the investigation, he was trying to break into the place first off. Now, why would you do that? Okay, well, maybe money, right? He's like, oh, well, maybe he didn't even know what the place was, or the guy could be some drunk and not in his right mind and looking for cash or something in there. But why would you have a gas can with a fluid in it with you? That seems to be the component here that makes it seem as if there's a premeditated component of doing destruction. You when did the signatures get turned in? I think, what day did the signatures have to be turned in?
I want to say the 9th.
Was it on a, see,
I feel like it was the 9th. I'll look it up really quick.
Yeah, I guess one could argue that that this was somebody, if, and again, I think it's a stretch, but if it were somebody that were wanting to put an end to his fight against the city, and you're thinking, well, maybe the signatures are in this place and you're trying to break into the place and then you're unsuccessful, so I'll just burn it to the ground. Again, I don't think that that's likely. I don't even think that that's necessarily plausible. But I don't know, just showing up and, all right, so he's got vodka on him. He tries to light the place on, but then having a separate gas can with some sort of fluid in it, unless, this is a guy that just drives around with a gas can full of some sort of fluid, doesn't necessarily sound even like it was an accelerant, or if it was, it didn't work. So I don't know. These are all things that perhaps will eventually come out. When were the signatures due? Did you find?
I'm still looking.
What day was the 9th? Yeah, I think you're right. I do think that it was the 9th, but I could be wrong on that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was the 9th. Okay, well.
Look at me go.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like that. Just instant that you found that.
Well, I just knew it. I just knew it in my
That's
heart.
true. Critics blasting Mamdani's, quote, infuriating refusal to budge on the involuntary removal of homeless New Yorkers, which has resulted in the death count keeps going up. This is socialism. I'm telling you that this, I just, with amusement, these people that can't understand why it is that not only did he implement a policy that has resulted in the death, freezing to death of street people, but once it became clear that that was the result, and even some of his political allies are saying, oh my gosh, this is horrific, we've got to reverse this, he refuses to. Nope, not going to do it. This is not surprising. Again, this is socialism. That's right. We are the morning show of the Mexican Villa Taco. Authentic Springfield Mexican food. I love me some tacos. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. We're getting into the springtime. Snow melted off, of course, for most of us just days ago. And for us, it exposed the outdoor living space as it was snow covered. The first round did a little shoveling off, particularly for Butters, the dog. But then I was like, screw it, you're a dog, you'll be fine. And she was, in fact. But watching it all melt away and you just start to see the green grass and you're thinking springtime and, people are out walking. I took a walk yesterday, a lot of people walking, and you start getting to that point where you're feeling like doing the outdoors, spending time outdoors. But for a lot of folks, and this is how we were for the longest time, we had this backyard, pretty standard sized backyard that we paid for. If you break down the square footage of purchasing land that your house is on that lot, it's expensive. And when we first moved in, we just put some lawn chairs out in the backyard. That didn't last too terribly long. One, it doesn't look great anyhow, just having lawn chairs in your backyard, cheap furniture in your backyard. We wanted something that was more accommodating for actual outdoor living space, and that's where Hunter Hardscapes came in. They do hardscaping. Of course, they do landscaping. They do lighting just for the aesthetics, for safety, particularly at night, drainage, you name it, they do it. They are the absolute premier in the area, which is why there is a wait list. I'm warning you now, because what you are doing is you are commissioning the absolute best in the 417 to do the job, whether it is small, large, for a business, a facility for uses like weddings and other events. I can't think of any off the top. I was going to say funerals, but that seemed kind of weird. But, it doesn't matter how big or small. They can accommodate it. You're going to get the best in the 417. HunterHardscapes.com. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. Critics enraged by Mamdani's hands-off policy, leaving homeless New Yorkers on the streets during the extreme cold, pleading the city do anything in its power to protect vulnerable population. Now, back since the days of Ed Koch, Democrat mayor of New York, and it became clear that with all of the homeless, sometimes you have some homeless that aren't in their right minds, and oftentimes those that are gripped with substance abuse. And when it turns really cold, they don't know any better than they don't know any better than staying outside in the elements when you get below freezing temperatures. And what would happen is you had homeless people that weren't in their right minds or perhaps drunk that would freeze to death. And so a policy was changed in which when that occurred, these individuals were brought indoors. That was a policy that New York continued through Republican and Democrat administrations until Socialist Mamdani came along and said, nope, we're not going to do that anymore, because true compassion is letting the mentally incapacitated make those decisions for themselves, and the result has been people freezing to death in New York. There were 5, and then 8, and then 12, and then 13. And at that point, even many of his allies were saying, hey, you need to quit doing this. But in true socialism, you don't listen to reason. Results don't matter because you are the one in power. And so now 18 frozen homeless people later, the compassionate Mamdani that's out there looking out for not only the working man, but the unhoused, sticking to his guns. But once again, we will note, he can at least brag about cutting down on the homeless population under his reign as mayor of New York. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. Someone texted in a question, and it's a question that's come up before, and it is a great question. And it essentially, I'll read it word for word in the upcoming hour. Like, yeah, ma'am, Donnie, I mean, how is it socialist to refuse to scoop up the mentally incapacitated homeless people and put them in like that doesn't seem like socialism at all, because socialism's about government and so forth. Actually, socialism is not about results, though. It is about authority, and it is about virtue signaling, and some of that has been done in this particular context. But it's a great question, so I do want to address that coming up in the next hour. I'm Nick Reed. Valentine's Day is around the corner, and one of the go-to places for a higher-end romantic meal, dinner experience is Vineyard Market. And they are going to be having a dinner on Friday and Saturday, so the 13th and the 14th. You can check out their site for information about making reservations. And if you want to get registered for a dinner for two, 3-course with wine pairing and so forth, and chef-curated meal, then you can go to KSGF.com and register for that. That will be one of the tables for two on Friday at Vineyard Market. But again, of course, if you just want to go ahead and make yourself a reservation, you can visit their site, and that is where you can see what availability there is. I know Saturday, when I talked with Heather over there, was Valentine's Day itself was pretty filled up, but there were still some availabilities there. And then, of course, Friday, some of the availabilities there, which is the dinner that we will be giving away, or they're giving away. You can register on our site at ksgf.com. And while you're there, you can sign up to win Lunch Bunch with Godfather's Pizza. That's right. Wednesdays, Sarah and I hosting you if you win, and up to 5 of your friends. The Springfield location for their all-you-can-eat buffet. Best pizza that you can just find all around. And they have a salad bar as well. Their buffet's not just pizza. I mean, there's dessert pizzas, and then there's like dessert breads and bread sticks and cheese sticks and all sorts of offerings there. It's a great place to go to have yourself a lunch. That, again, and the Vineyard Market giveaway at ksgf.com. I wanted to read a review. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Doug posted, "We hired Emily to sell our house. We were moving out of state, so we were not able to use her to purchase our new home. We had to hire a different realtor for that, obviously, just because it's a different state. And so they got the experience of two realtors. They got Emily Johnson and then Standard Realtor." Doug wrote, "This allowed us to really see the difference between realtors, and it was dramatic. Emily was great. Best realtor we have had in a long time. Thank you so much, Emily." Yeah, that's one I haven't read before, and it's pretty straightforward. And I think it really tells the story that so many people have experienced, generally not on the same timeline. Generally, people who really appreciate how much better of a job Emily does, it's because of past experiences. So it's really interesting to hear from someone that was moving out of state, and so they were unable to utilize her services to purchase the new home out of state. And that way they got a side-by-side comparison between Emily Johnson and another realtor out there. And as he said, the differences could not have been any more dramatic. Home buying, home selling, Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. We're talking about Mamdani and the fact that he changed a long-standing bipartisan policy in New York regarding the homeless population, specifically the segment of the population that might have mental issues, and so when it turns deadly cold, they don't know to come in out of the cold. Could be talking about elderly people with dementia. You could be talking about people that are dealing with substance abuse issues. And because these people would oftentimes just die, freeze to death out in the streets, it has been a longstanding policy that those people get brought in. Usually, EMTs will find them, and then they get taken to a shelter. Mamdani said, nope, we're not going to do that anymore because that is interfering with the rights of these individuals. And it has resulted in death after death after death. The death count is up to 18 now, around the dozen or so mark, actually about a baker's dozen, 13. Even many of his political allies that are socialists were saying, yeah, maybe we ought to stop this policy because people are dying. And Mamdani's like, no, won't do it. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. I don't like Mamdani. He is terrible, but how is it socialism to refuse to force people to go to warming shelters? The shelters are open. Individuals know they are, and people try to get homeless to go. If someone refuses, the government's, quote, help, and the government says, okay, do what you want regardless of the consequences. That is not an authoritarian government. It may be a wrong policy, but he's oddly respecting autonomy. That perspective is one that conflates what socialism claims to be versus what socialism actually is. Now, first off, when we talk about the autonomy and giving people this, the option that this is just respecting their choice. And the argument is that's not the sort of people we're dealing with here. These are people that don't know any better. These are people that they're not staying outside because it's not somebody riding out a hurricane because, by gosh, this is my home and I'm not leaving it. Some, person that's just stubborn. These are people that genuinely, they don't know that if they try to stay out there, they will die. It's like a person who is standing in the road and they don't see the oncoming car. And so you pull them out of the way because they didn't see it coming. As opposed to someone who sees it coming and they're like, yep, it's time for me to go. This is my personal choice. Now, some may argue that that's still not the place of government to help those, who don't know any better. But that is a defining difference between the allowance of people who know what they're doing to do what they want, even if it's not good for them, versus people who just don't even know. They have no idea what it is that they're doing. Socialism is ultimately about, it isn't even so much government control as the people in control deciding what you are and aren't allowed to choose for yourself. In any dictatorship or fascist regime, you can find areas in which people are allowed to do what they want because the people in charge have decided that. Now, I'm grouping together just this authoritarian mindset. So be it socialism or fascism or communism or Marxism, they're arguably different forms of management, but they are all operating under the belief that people who are in power get to decide for you what they want to decide for you. That your, quote, rights aren't these inalienable rights that are endowed upon you by your creator. They're the rights you have because they have made that decision. Now, if Mamdani were someone who consistently operated under that belief system, and because he operated under that belief system, held consistent in saying, hey, people want to stay out, in fact, what would be consistent if the government had no warming shelters whatsoever? That's something churches want to do, private organizations want to do it, but hey, as government, we do not have it. We respect people's individual liberties, and this is not the proper role of government. So not only are we not going to force people into shelter when it's cold, even if they don't know any better, that's not our job for people who do know better. Right? We are not in the business of creating these places for individuals. That's a private sector thing. That's a charity thing. Then you could at least argue he's consistent, because that is a belief system based off of individual autonomy and individuals that are taking care of themselves and taking care of others should they want to. Socialism or Marxism or any of these other forms of government in which you as an individual don't have that autonomy. You only have the privilege of exercising, quote, freedoms or decisions that government decides you have the right to make. That's what is in play here. The reason that Mamdani chose to no longer have government care for these individuals isn't because of some sort of belief that these are individuals that should have the human right to make these decisions for themselves, and this isn't the role of government. It's just because he decided, that's, hey, I'm the guy in charge, and so I get to make these decisions. His positioning on it was political. It wasn't anything that was noble. It was simply this idea that I'm a champion of the homeless, and yeah, homeless are given a hard time. They're told that they can't ride buses for free, and they're told they can't do that. And so he adopted this theme of homeless people can do whatever they want. They want to ride buses for free. They should be able to ride buses for free. They want to, ride this, do this or do that. They should be able to do whatever it is that they want. And that includes staying out in the freezing cold, even if they're not in the right mind. So it's not for any sort of noble reason. It was a marketing reason of, I'm taking the stance that the homeless are oppressed, and so they should be able to do what they want. Now, you may look at that and say, well, that is inconsistent with the idea that government should be running their lives and telling them what to do. But socialism, any form of government top down, telling people how it is they should or shouldn't live their life, there's always inconsistencies there, because it's not based off a consistent principle of individual liberties. It's just based off of the idea that whomever is in charge, they get to decide what rights you do and don't have. And it doesn't matter if they're consistent, because it's whatever they feel is a good idea at the time. It's a great question to ask, because it does highlight the inconsistencies of socialism. Look at the entire idea behind socialism. Oh, it's going to lift everyone up. Oh, yes, it's wonderful. Well, look at the results everywhere. Eventually, again, be it socialism or Marxism or fascism, it either collapses on itself, or the regime becomes so powerful and crushing that the people have no ability to overturn the government without some sort of military coup occurring, which you do see that occur at times. Nothing about what socialism or those other central forms of government say that they're about actually end up with the results that they claim they're about. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 67. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 56. And for Thursday, mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
We're going to kind of merge a couple of themes here, just because we were talking about Mamdani. Now, of course, he's been under fire of the complete mishandling of the storms in the winter weather in New York City, aside from the increasing death count of homeless people, just the day-to-day operations of snow removal, and it's been a complete and utter disaster. And this should come as no surprise. I mean, this guy, he's not even run a Taco Bell in terms of management. And by the way, I'm not saying that as if running a Taco Bell is the bare minimum of management. Running fast food restaurant, particularly in management, is not at all an easy thing to do. In fact, it is a fantastic training ground, I think, to learn leadership skills, and how it is to have to adapt to all ever-changing situations. In fact, probably any city leader or person who is responsible for day-to-day operations, it would be a benefit to that person to have to learn management of a fast food restaurant, or any restaurant for that matter, for like a year or two. But he's never even run anything. And you think about the absurdity of putting some guy who's never run anything or had a private sector job and putting him in charge of New York City? And then the people are, outraged that he's not doing a good job? I mean, at some point, it's like you want to say to these people, you need to take a little responsibility for your decision. You made a very bad decision. It isn't as if you were hoodwinked. He did not come to the table with a fake resume of running other cities successfully, or anything for that matter, yet you all still chose him. Largely thanks to, I think he had 80% of women in New York City vote for him, you idiots. Now he's under fire for defending a knife-wielding suspect over police officers. 911 call, mentally ill man. All of this is in body cam footage. And he charged police officers with a knife. And so, in order to not get killed, they shot him. Mamdani doesn't even want the guy charged, because he deserves mental health treatment instead of criminal prosecution. Jabez Chakraborty was shot by officers in Queens for charging them with a large kitchen knife during a mental health episode, a case that has sparked debate over Mamdani's call for treatment instead of prosecution. Police told Fox News Digital that the family had requested involuntary removal of their son, a request that requires both police and EMS to respond. And by the way, in Mamdani's world and his plans, it wouldn't have even been a police officer that showed up. It probably would have been some 22-year-old new hired therapist as part of replacing law enforcement with social workers, and we know how that would have ended. She would have been killed. The Queens District Attorney's Office is investigating the incident, with preliminary reports suggesting prosecutors are considering an indictment for attempted murder. Mamdani, however, met with the family of the would-be killer and echoed their argument that he needs mental health treatment, not criminal prosecution. So Mamdani is taking the position here that if you try to murder a police officer, you should not be charged. You instead should get mental health treatment. Well, I guess that means anyone who attempts to murder anyone in Mamdani's world should not be criminally prosecuted. Because by definition, if you're trying to kill someone, clearly you have some mental issues. When I tell you the Democrat Party is the party that represents the criminal, this is further proof of that. Here you've got a 911 call because here is a guy that's danger to himself, danger to others. He tries to murder someone, and Mamdani is taking the guy's side who tried to murder police officers, saying that this is not an area in which a person should be held accountable. You want to talk about really honing in the desire to turn your city into the murder capital of the world. You run around sending the message that if you attempt to kill someone, and I suppose that also applies if he had been successful. You would argue he should not be charged with murder because the same mental issue would still apply. So if you're arguing that someone who tries to murder a police officer clearly has mental issues, so he should not be charged, you can't, I mean, if he was successful, that doesn't change in that perspective the mental status, so the argument's still going to be the same, that he shouldn't be charged for it. I mean, New York City is populated with a bunch of idiots. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. There was an article in Tablet Magazine, and it was centered around a New Yorker by the name of Josh Greenberg and how he fled New York City because he had been mugged. And so he called police, and he was in Park Slope, New York. So this is it's liberal area. It's a liberal utopia. And he was mugged, which I can only imagine is very scary. And even if you don't come to physical harm, you hear these stories, particularly if you're in New York City, all the time that people even, okay, they comply, but they still get stabbed, they get shot. And so that is got to be a completely traumatizing situation, not to mention just the violating factor of taking things that belong to you. And after this, of course, he's at dinner with friends, and everybody's talking about what's going on. He's like, "You won't believe what happened to me," and so he's just talking about the trauma of it, and here's what law enforcement said. And his liberal friends turned on him for calling the police on the person who mugged him, accusing him as perpetuating cycles and causing harm to the criminal. And so that's why he got out, because he said that he found that in New York, that the culture there and his friends were, quote, that they had more sympathy for the guy that mugged me than they did for me. There was another article or posting that went viral. I think it was an op-ed piece. Some guy out in California, Los Angeles, and he had written this piece about and it wasn't as dark as this, but some people's dog bit him, and when he complained, like all of his liberal friends acted like he was the problem, and he just sort of all of a sudden woke up and realized what is going on here, and he was is a liberal. Like, what is it with liberals that it's the innocent person they always turn on? It's the law-abiding person that is just being nice and polite and trying to treat others as they would want to be treated. And the minute they get victimized and they want somebody held accountable for it, held to the same standards they are, liberals turn on them. It's what we see with all of this, anti-ICE stuff and pro-illegal immigrant, specifically those who have committed crimes like rape and child molestation. At any press conference over the last numerous years the Democrats have ever held outside of, running for office, but, just grandstanding, it's always for a criminal. It's never for the victims of these individuals. All of these little candlelight vigils, even I think Springfield had one for, the guy that was fighting with ICE, Freddie, and got shot in the process. Those people, have they held a single vigil for somebody murdered by or raped by an illegal immigrant? No. The guy that apparently was from Mexico shot in and killed in his front yard in Springfield just a couple of weeks ago by somebody in this country illegally. Do they hold any sort of event for the person killed, the actual victim? No. But by gosh, they'll get together with others, and there was just an article in the News Leader about a group of people that go to visit illegals who are detained like that guy in order to see if they need a pen pal. See if there's anything they can do to make their stay more comfortable. When I note that the Democrat Party and the left is the party of criminals and the party of terrorism and the party, this is what I'm talking about. And oftentimes for liberals, in the case of, Josh Greenberg, it often takes them becoming the victim, and it isn't just that in and of itself that causes them to flee these liberal utopias, but it's when they realize that their liberal friends and colleagues and neighbors turn against them for not wanting to be mugged. And then they realize that as a law-abiding citizen that simply wants to coexist and live a life where you can walk down the street without fear of being the victim of a crime, that just wanting that makes the left turn against you. And that's because they are the party of crime. That is the people that those are the people that they represent. Those are the people that they defend and stand up for. The victim is the problem in their worldview. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 67. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 56. And for Thursday, mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
I've shared this a couple of times, but I'm kind of in review mode today with a number of our partners, and I just love this Katie Harper review regarding Pinnaker Honda, and she's not even from the area, but she was in the area on a quest to find a new vehicle. And some people are that you may be this way. I have friends that, will buy a truck that is in Florida, and they fly to Florida and pick up the truck, and because it's $800 cheaper and just what I'm looking for. That's not me. But a lot of people are that way, and they're probably better off for it, get better deals, and know what they're doing. Katie was one of those people, and she posted, when my months, plural, long truck search here at home in California led me to Missouri for a truck that wound up being a no-go, I felt so defeated and frustrated. Until I stopped by Pinnaker Honda in Springfield, Missouri. Randy came out to greet me and showed me a beautiful Honda Ridgeline within my budget that I wound up driving back home to California. After truly searching for months, I'm so grateful for Randy and Paul and everyone else behind the scenes who hustled and helped make this happen for me. I found the perfect truck, got a great price and a warranty, and they treated me with kindness and respect. Thank you, Pinnaker Honda. And like I said, I don't really have much color commentary to add to that. I think that it's just a great review, and it is the difference you get with a Pinnaker family. And I kind of like the fact people, somebody from California, I stereotype, and I just believe people in this part of the country are just genuinely nicer and friendlier than other parts of the country, particularly some of California. And so you combine that with just the family culture and values at Pinnaker Honda, and it doesn't surprise me, but you just kind of like seeing that. Somebody from California, probably never even been to Springfield, Missouri before, and have that sort of incredible experience. Pinnaker Honda, incredible deals going on right now, particularly with those tax refunds, helping you max that stuff out. They are on South Walnut, just south of, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. You can also find them under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. There is one GOP lawmaker calling on the FCC to take action after Bad Bunny's halftime lyrics were translated from Spanish to English. Have you read some of these lyrics?
Yes, I have.
I can't even share them censored.
Yes,
because,
please don't.
Well, it'd be like the car, Audi, there's just
Right.
it is so vulgar. And you want to talk about not just objectifying women, but treating them essentially as sex toys, and just the vulgarity of it. And then I watch these people, and John Kasich, he's in town hall. He's a former Republican Ohio governor, and he's just a piece of work. This guy is. He is the reason Republicans lose. And he immediately had gone to social media, calling Bad Bunny's show a celebration of Latino culture. Is this really a representation of Latino culture? I'm not an expert on Latino culture. I've been in one way or another going to Mexico since before I can remember. In fact, every so often my dad will send me pictures from when we were little kids and we're down in Matamoros and other parts of Mexico. We were going to areas that weren't the resort areas. Now, of course, we do Great Escape there. So I just, when I think of Latino culture, much of which is here in the United States, I don't know, I think of family units that are large and very family-centric. I think of generally relatively religious people, particularly in the form of Catholicism. I think of individuals that really respect their old traditions. And then you have this guy who is not from Mexico. But, it's the Latino culture overall. This is what we're being told anyhow. This is why it should be respected. And the song that he chooses to sing in these lyrics are just all about doing the most degrading things you can possibly think to a woman, sexually speaking. And this is the beautiful Latino culture. Now, listen, every culture has its pockets of what many would consider to be more wholesome and then the more depraved. All cultures have this. But what does it say about the liberal mindset that this is the representation? This is a beautiful representation. Oh, it was just so a moment for the Latino community to be proud. And incidentally, and again, I don't know this necessarily, but I'm not sure that every person that is of Latino heritage from numerous different countries necessarily appreciate all being lumped into one culture. I mean, even here in the United States, I mean, we're all one United States, but I don't consider the culture of the Ozarks to be the same as the culture of New Jersey. And if someone were to take the average New Jersey situation and the way that they interact and the way they talk and the way they vote and paint all Americans that way, I would be like, no, that's not accurate. So to take someone who is from Puerto Rico and then claim that that is a representation of all Latinos, and not just that, but when he is performing and he is projecting in that culture this complete, just treating women like objects, essentially, is what it does. It's just, I guess I know what it is. And it is the left, once again, utilizing people for symbolism. It doesn't matter what the lyrics are. It doesn't matter whether this actually is a positive portrayal or a negative portrayal of the Latino community or an accurate representation of the Latino community on a whole. It's all symbolism for them. And because this is something that a lot of traditional Americans who love the country dislike it by default, and that's how the left behaves, they embrace things that their political opposition is on the opposite side of. And we see this increasingly with virtually every position that they take. There was a posting, this was particularly hilarious. Former ESPN reporter Jamel Hill tried to make a swipe at conservatives over Bad Bunny's halftime performance, and it was a total disaster. It missed the mark badly. To recap, the entire performance was in Spanish. Not really what you'd expect for a Super Bowl halftime show, but it's not the hill to die on. Most of us have moved on, though the left is trying to poke the bear because they are race baiters. And so she posted a tweet that, and it didn't print off here, but I remember it. It was essentially saying, conservatives opposed to halftime show, and they're angry about it. And then it was a picture of someone dancing. It says also conservatives on Cinco de Mayo, trying to paint conservatives as being hypocritical. Because on Cinco de Mayo, they're perfectly fine having a good time, but this halftime show, they didn't appreciate. Well, first off, and this is where she is being mocked, Bad Bunny's not Mexican. Cinco de Mayo is a celebration regarding Mexico and a specific battle that took place. Those are two different countries. And she, of course, is being mocked as a typical liberal. They're all brown to her, so they're all the same to her, which, again, falls into this category of, oh, they're all Latinos. This is all of their cultures, regardless of whether they're Puerto Rican or they're Mexican or from El Salvador. They're all just the same. They do the same thing, by the way, with Native Americans. But the other aspect of this is one doesn't have anything to do with the other. This is what the left doesn't understand. And increasingly, you see, I keep seeing this meme. The same people, fun fact, the same people that felt we needed separate bathrooms and separate water fountains are the same people that feel we need separate, halftime shows. So now the left is so authoritarian, you have to also want to enjoy the same entertainment that they do. That if you don't enjoy the same entertainment and the same artists that they do, if you want some other form of music, some other form of artist, then that means you are no different than a segregationist. That's how insanely psychotic these people on the left are. And in their minds, anyone who did not want to watch that halftime show, largely because they felt it was, here's somebody that's burned the American flag and he's dogged on the country and they just don't want to watch it. Here's one, I don't have to worry about that. That means that you're racist. If you don't want to potentially be crapped all over as an American, then that means that you're racist. This is the brainwashing that has occurred. Now, regarding, and I can guarantee you, the left will say that it is racist to call for an FCC investigation into this. But the fact of the matter is, if these lyrics had been uttered in English, I can't even begin to imagine the fines and what sort of repercussions would occur. I mean, number one, they would have cut away from it. So is this going to be another privileged class where if you are a Spanish-speaking individual, you get to completely violate and ignore FCC rules in this country? And the entire idea behind the FCC rules when it comes to nudity and profanity and things of an adult nature, it is because they are public airwaves, and particularly when you're talking about children, that it is supposed to be a safe place, that you don't have to worry about turning on the public airwaves, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox in particular, that you don't have to worry about seeing something that you don't want your children to see. It is a place that you can rely on to be relatively family friendly. So is the position going to be that the Hispanic community, that the Spanish speaking community, they don't deserve those same protections that the rest of us get from the government? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line regarding this nonsensical. It's again, I don't know. It's not really a meme so much. I mean, I guess it is that the left keeps posting, claiming that the same people who need two halftime shows are the same people who felt they needed bathrooms that were separate and water fountains. Now, of course, they don't explain that, and of course, that's ludicrous. We have separate lots of things. Separate movies, separate concerts. Do you know why? Because lots of people have different taste in things, different restaurants, different levels of hot sauces. We are human beings. Simply because, these are people who love to run under the mantle of diversity until the moment that somebody wants a diverse perspective or form of entertainment from them, then all of a sudden you're a racist. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, I reminded some leftists that posted the same segregationist meme that thank you for reminding us that girls 100% do absolutely need their own bathroom and locker rooms. I tell you the other thing about it, and this is, I don't post on social media. I'd like to think I would not post. Well, I don't post political stuff on social media. And I'd like to think even if I didn't have this show, I still wouldn't, but I don't know that that's the case or not. See, I have this as an outlet. But I'm seeing, and some of these people, are people I know, and posting this, and it's like one gal I went to high school with, this is the truest thing I've seen in a long time. Like, you idiot. You're the same people celebrating a separate national anthem. This is why the left is reliant on people that stop thinking. It is why they train their followers to be completely obedient and to never question anything. Because just the brain-dead nature of people who believe they're making some sort of righteous point by claiming, well, anyone who needs a separate halftime show clearly is a racist. And then the next posting is, oh, wasn't the separate national anthem for African Americans so wonderful? Oh, so I guess having a separate performance is good? You people on the left have to, again, I know I say this often, you got to understand why it is that we look at you and frankly think that you're just brain dead because of stuff like that. Ran a bit long in the previous segment, so we're going to jump over to traffic again. I'm Nick Reed. Hour number 3 coming up very, very quickly. Yeah, BET. Oh, yeah, I know. We're talking about these people trashing on those at like a separate halftime show, and they're like, well, I mean, anyone who needs a separate halftime show, they're the same people that needed separate water fountain, like separate colleges or separate networks, BET or the NAACP or any of those. Well, see, those don't count, of course. You're confused. Springfield's Talk 1041. Welcome to the morning show, the only morning show in Springfield, maybe the country, with an official taco for the morning show, sponsored by Mexican Villa, which is your home for authentic Springfield Mexican food. Do you know they boil their ground beef for their tacos? I'm like, well, what? What difference does that make? That, I've learned a lot over the years. That separates out the fat. You know, a lot of times you get hard-shell tacos or just and it's greasy and it makes it all soft, and you don't get that with the Mexican Villa. Much healthier too. Just separates out the fat. Fun fact for you. I want a great homeloan.com for any home loan needs you may have, any refinancing needs you may have, any questions about reverse mortgages. Particularly, a lot of people, as they get up around retirement age, that's something that they consider to be quite appealing, but you don't know exactly how it works. Is it legit? What happens when the deal's done? Do you get kicked out of your house? Do you have to own your house all outright? Well, no to a lot of those questions. But the Carrickers and their team can answer any questions you may have about reverse mortgages and if it's a smart thing for you. And this may be a time for you to buy a home. There are so many factors involved in the decision-making process beyond interest rates. Talked with Alex or Anthony, one of the two, recently. We've talked to both of them recently, but one of them was talking about how someone had called about refinancing, and they were going to save like $50 a month, so it was one of those deals where, in the end, is it, really worth it? But have you thought about, like, are you happy where you're living? What about buying a new home? And well, our interest rates are this, so we kind of thought that isn't going to come out ahead for us. And with a little bit of work and research, they found actually that is a tremendous move for them, and it's going to allow them to move closer to their kids. Wasn't even on their radar as a possibility, but because they reached out, asked some questions of the Carrickers and the team, they found that it was not just possible, but a smart move, and now they're going to be closer to family. I want a great homeloan.com because you do. I love this headline. Of course, it's the Associated Press. U.S. snowboard star Chloe Kim calls for unity after Trump bashes teammate. Now, what quite potentially could have been a headline that gave a more accurate representation of what has been going on in terms of these, conversations regarding the Olympics would be U.S. snowboard star Chloe Kim calls for unity after fellow Olympians criticize the United States. They make it sound as if there was absolutely no division. We were all together. Everybody's pro-America until Donald Trump stepped in. Now, people can disagree with the way that Donald Trump reacted to Olympians that are supposed to be representing the United States of America, then trashing the United States of America. One of the Olympians talking about how it's really hard to represent the U.S. Now, he's kind of backtracked a bit and tried to be a bit more diplomatic about it. But what, of course, occurs, and so much of this is manufactured outrage, you have an Olympian that gets asked a question, well, what's it like representing the United States, given, how horrible the country is under Donald Trump? They respond. Then they go ask Donald Trump, hey, did you hear what this guy said about America? It's really hard under your presidency to represent the United States of America and ICE and the Nazis and everything. What do you say about that? And then, of course, Trump is like, the guy's a loser. Oh, look at Donald Trump. So now Donald Trump is the one that's causing all of the problems. Until Donald Trump just stepped in, there was no division. There was no sort of political talk when it came, which, of course, is total and complete BS. The media it's like the mean girl thing. They purposefully go in and they try to create these fights. It's similar to if you watch any of the reality TV shows, whether it's a Real Housewife of whatever, or any of the old school stuff, or Vanderpump Rules, or whatever it might be. it's clear that while they are unscripted, conflict is prompted. Oftentimes, they will direct the different people to talk about certain things. Hey, we need you to confront so-and-so while we're filming about what you heard that she said about this person over here. And if you watch these shows, a lot of times you can tell. It's not very organic. It's like, yes, I really needed to talk to you about, and you're like, okay, so this is clearly prompted. And it's done for the draw. It's to create conflict, because the conflict is what people like watching about those shows. That's what the media does. The media is no different than the people who are responsible in these reality shows of creating conflict for the purposes of entertainment. Now, that's not why the media does it. The media has a political agenda involved, but they take what otherwise is a perfectly fine situation, non-political, the Olympics, young person since the age of 4 years old has been training their entire life for this, working 12 hours a day and blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifices, mom and dad getting up at 3 in the morning to drive them to the skating rink, which was an hour and a half away, and, you know, all of these different things. And what are they? They're like, hey, now that I have an opportunity to talk with you after you had this successful run, I mean, what do you think about what your country's doing? Donald Trump and all the ICE stuff, right? I mean, come on. I mean, what do you have to say about that? And then they get the comment. And it's very clear. The wrong answer is America's awesome, I love it. You've got to, even if you give the obligatory, oh, I love the United States of America, there's the flip side, the obligatory for the left. This is sort of the loyalty test to prove you're loyal to the elites and the cause about all the bad things that are going on. You always have to point out that now I know America's a piece of crap country, and I know Donald Trump's a Nazi and everything. Don't get me wrong. I understand that, which is why it makes it a very difficult time to represent the United States. So, we got this sound. Now let's go over here to Donald Trump. Let's ask him what he thinks about it. This is what the media does. They deliberately pit us against one another. They deliberately create in what otherwise are these harmonious, non-political settings, and they force it in there so that this conflict exists. It's disgusting. And I just mentioned offhand, you notice that we don't see this with athletes of other countries. And maybe in Germany, the local German reporter in German is asking these questions of German athletes, and we just don't happen to hear about it. But I guarantee you the rest of the world hears whenever the Associated Press or any other media outlet ask an American athlete to weigh in on what a piece of crap Donald Trump is, and then Donald Trump's response. They all hear that. I mean, some of the things that are going on in some of particularly our European ally countries right now, particularly the United Kingdom, and the decades-long cover-up of just countless rape victims, young girls, and the cover-ups within government because they didn't want to make the Muslim immigrant community look bad, and they're finally beginning to acknowledge some of this. These massive scandals that are occurring, or just specifically when it comes to immigration issues in Europe, and how you have in some countries people taking to the streets protesting. We have seen in France and in the past where you have the Muslim immigrants that burn down buildings, and you have these massive conflicts that are going on, and oftentimes the government is taking the side of the people who are the migrants to the country. Sometimes it's the flip side of it, but there is plenty of conflict going on in a lot of other countries. Why is it that the athletes from those countries aren't being asked these same questions for the rest of the world to judge? Why is it that we are not being served up sound bites of athletes from other countries trashing on their countries and the way it is that they're operating? That's a question I suspect a lot of these journalists haven't even taken the opportunity to ponder. And they don't want to because it exposes an ugly truth. I want to play coming up for you. We're going to get the news. And there's a video circulating of a sheriff from Mecklenburg County, North Carolina. And it's 2-1 Democrat population. This is a county that has voted Democrat since John Kerry ran for president. They overwhelmingly Kamala Harris. They're extreme left, and so a sheriff is an elected position, so he's a lefty. And he was called to, I don't even know what the issue was, but he was being questioned in the state house, I believe it was. And one of the lawmakers was apparently going to set the stage for a Q&A with him by identifying the branches of government and so forth. And it derailed because it became uncomfortably clear that the sheriff, the lack of knowledge of our very basic forms of government, I actually felt embarrassed for him. And he's a Democrat. Generally, you kind of get giggles out of it, and you're like, ha, idiot. Now the world can see. This guy, I genuinely, I felt bad for the guy. Not that he necessarily earns the pity, but just the amount of embarrassment that he should have. I want to play that audio coming up because it is just a horrific reflection of how ignorant particularly people on the left are, regarding how it is that our government, that they claim they defend, how it operates. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see partly sunny skies. It'll be a breezy one as well with a high near 67. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Wednesday, sunny with a high near 56. And for Thursday, mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you. The Pyramid Roofing Company. They're the trusted roofing experts. Just, good, honest people that don't give you a sales pitch. They won't upsell you, and they won't use scare tactics. They show up, they do the free roof inspection, they take tons of photos and videos so you can see exactly what they see, and then they come up with the best solution for you and your home. Plus, they work with you every step of the way, including through that insurance process. So, if that is what you are looking for in a roofing company, you found it with Josh and his team. If it is time to have the Pyramid team out to your home, reach out to Josh today and schedule that free roof inspection. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
All right, before I play this audio of this sheriff in North Carolina, I want to make one other point. And it is in response to the absurd laziness of the left claiming that people who wanted a separate halftime show, it's because they're racist. And that's the reason that Turning Point USA had a separate halftime show, is for all the racists in the country that didn't want to watch a person of color perform. So I went back. I was just looking at the list of past performances in which there wasn't an alternative. So that would dictate, right, based off the left's argument that they've always been white performers, no person of color, which is why it wasn't until Bad Bunny performed that there was an alternative halftime show. Last halftime show, Kendrick Lamar. Before that, Usher. Before that, Rihanna. Before that, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Eminem, Mary J. Blige, and again, Kendrick Lamar. Before that, The Weeknd. The year before that, Shakira, Jennifer Lopez. And before that, so back 2019, Maroon 5. So they went from, there was no smooth transition, straight from as white as you can get, Maroon 5, to black artist, Latino artist, Latino artist, black artist, black artist, black artist. And it wasn't a problem. Even though those were people of color, sometimes black, sometimes Latino. They also weren't known for burning American flags and trashing all over America. So for those of you on the left who have just even the slightest inkling to get to the truth of things, that should indicate to you that the desire of many Americans to watch an alternative halftime show had nothing to do with color, because that has never been a problem. But this time, what was different about this time? It was someone that went into it hot as an anti-American, who was telling an American audience, you learn to speak my language, and who has burned American flags. And if you want to degrade people who are Americans who don't want to be lectured at and demeaned by an artist, okay, that's fine, but that's not racism. North Carolina. Have you heard this audio, Sarah?
I have not.
Oh, man, this is horrifying, though not surprising. Now, Mecklenburg County Sheriff Gary McFadden. The North Carolina General Assembly, they were having a committee hearing, and he was there to answer questions, and it was, according to reports, a wide range of issues, including immigration, deaths that occurred in county jails under his watch. So just sort of a catch-all Q&A regarding law enforcement, as his position as the top law enforcement officer of this county. It's a county, it's sort of central southern North Carolina, it butts up against South Carolina. And at one point, you have North Carolina Republican State Rep Alan Chesser, that began by asking what would be some constitutional questions. And what you can hear here is it didn't go the way that the Republican member of Congress thought that it was, or his member of the State House thought it was going to go. He was trying to set the stage, but he did not get very far because of what was the clear lack of knowledge by the sheriff. And this is how the exchange went.
Or if I were to classify your position as the highest law enforcement officer in the county, would that be a fair description?
That's correct.
And as such, you made reference earlier that you're a constitutional office. My colleague made reference that there are constitutional divisions amongst responsibilities between us and you. What branch of government do you operate under?
Mecklenburg County.
What branch of government do you operate under, Sheriff?
Constitution of the United States.
Correct. That is what establishes the branches of government. I'm asking which branch you fall under.
Mecklenburg County. I'm a duly sworn Mecklenburg County Sheriff. We answer to the people of Mecklenburg County.
This was not where I was anticipating getting stuck. Are you aware how many branches of government there are?
No.
Okay. For the sake of debate, I will move on and say there are three branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. Of those three, which do you believe you fall under?
I believe I fall under the last one.
Would you say it to me?
Judicial.
Okay. You are incorrect, sir. You fall under the executive. And as a member of the executive, what do you believe your primary function is?
Care and custody of those in my custody at the Mecklenburg County Detention Center.
Okay. That is part of what your responsibilities as sheriff are, sure. But as a member of the executive, your primary function is to execute upon the law, to enforce the law. So first, if I were to classify your position as the highest law enforcement officer in the county.
Started a loop. Okay, so you.
Goodness gracious.
You can see on the lawmaker. It's easy when you hear this to think that he knew this was what was going to happen, and his purpose was to highlight the complete lack of knowledge that this sheriff has about our very basic government functions, and even what his own function is as a person who is to act as under the executive branch and executing the laws. But that wasn't where he was headed. He was sort of setting the ground to ask, some questions down the line, and you can see it in his face. He's sort of deer caught in the headlights, and he notes this is not where I anticipated this thing getting caught up. He clearly anticipated so he was kind of setting up the sheriff, to, I guess, hang himself, if you will, over some of the questions. But it was supposed to be down the line, not this early in the question, to not even know how many branches of government. And then when given multiple choice. All right, let's see. We've got the legislative, we've got the executive, we've got the judicial. Do you know which? Now that you have multiple choice, which one do you operate under? The last one? Nope, that's wrong. I wish he had said guess again to see if, with only two choices left, if he chose. I bet he would have said, now what are the other two again? This is a sheriff. Now, this is actually very telling, aside from the complete, and of course, this guy's a lefty. I mean, it's really funny that the left characterizes people who are all about 1776 and the founders and the Federalist Papers and the Constitution, under the Democrat administration and the Biden administration, were deemed to be, quote, potential terrorists. And Democrats, here's an elected Democrat that doesn't know I would say the very, very, very basics about the government in which he works, and has the power to arrest people, put them in jail. And as a Democrat lacks this knowledge. Now, this is important beyond the obvious, and for reasons that I want to talk about coming up here. The Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line 447 KSGF. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see partly sunny skies with a high near 67. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 32. For your Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 56. And for Thursday, mostly cloudy with a high near 57.
Someone texted in regarding the North Carolina Democrat sheriff being asked the very basic fundamentals of how our government is structured and his inability to do so, saying that was more uncomfortable than listening to Michael Scott on The Office. It is similar. It is somebody that is just completely ignorant, and it is uncomfortable to listen to. And then at one point, just trying to fake it with confidence. By giving random answers that aren't even, if you were to give multiple choice, would not even be one of the multiple choice answers. It's like, what's your favorite fruit? Or, what's the favorite fruit of the American people? And you're like, tables. No, that's not even a fruit. You're not in the ballpark here. I'll play the audio again because I want to make an important point regarding this. And this took place recently in North Carolina. This guy's the sheriff of the county that Billy Graham was born in. Just thought that was a fun fact. In North Carolina, it's a lefty, like 60+% of the voters are Democrat voters. It's a Kamala Harris county, one of the few in the country. So it gives you a sense of the level of information that the voters have or the lack thereof. And this is the sheriff, who's a Democrat, obviously. I mean, that's how he got elected. And so there was a Q&A, and he was just called. It was an essential, or essentially just, hey, different lawmakers asking questions. I believe it's his county in which that the Ukrainian girl was stabbed on the mass transit, and there have been a number of deaths that were that occurred under his watch in the jail, and so there were a few lines of questioning that were coming his way as he was testifying. And so it was the turn of the Republican state rep Alan Chesser, and this is the couple minutes of the opening exchange.
First, if I were to classify your position as the highest law enforcement officer in the county, would that be a fair description?
That's correct.
And as such, you made reference earlier that you're a constitutional office. My colleague made reference that there are constitutional divisions amongst responsibilities between us and you. What branch of government do you operate under?
Mecklenburg County.
What branch of government do you operate under, Sheriff?
Constitution of the United States.
Correct. That is what establishes the branches of government. I'm asking which branch you fall under.
Mecklenburg County. I'm a duly sworn Mecklenburg County sheriff. We answer to the people of Mecklenburg County.
This was not where I was anticipating getting stuck. Are you aware how many branches of government there are?
No.
Okay. For the sake of debate, I will move on and say there are 3 branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial. Of those 3, which do you believe you fall under?
I believe I fall under the last one.
Would you say it to me?
Judicial.
Okay. You are incorrect, sir. You fall under the executive. And as a member of the executive, what do you believe your primary function is?
Care and custody of those in my custody at the Mecklenburg County Detention Center.
Okay. That is part of what your responsibilities as sheriff are, sure. But as a member of the executive, your primary function is to execute upon the law, to enforce the law. So first, if I were to classify...
All right, you could almost, if you didn't know any better, believe that this wasn't actually a sheriff at all, but was standing in. Like, for the actual sheriff was drunk and couldn't do it, so he got one of his bodyguards or something, or a cousin, like, you got to fill in for me, man. Like, I don't know anything about being a sheriff. Like, it's all right, it'll be fine. It reminds me, there's a bit, Jerry Clower, some of you, depending on your age, may know Jerry Clower, and he was a comedian back in the day. He was a storyteller comedian. And he had this long story, and I'm just going to give you the sense of it here. But he had this story that he would tell about how there was a limo driver that picked up some scientist, some egghead, to take to some speech that he was giving to a bunch of other eggheads, and the limo driver was in the conversation with the speaker, who was the expert, was talking essentially, if I remember correctly, about how his area of expertise wasn't that difficult and so forth, and so the egghead was like, "Oh, you think it's so easy? I tell you what, these people, they don't even know what I look like. So you go up and you give the speech and you answer the questions and see if it's as easy as you think it is." So he's like, "All right, I'll do that." So they switch clothes and everything, and the limo driver gets up there, and the actual expert is sitting in the audience, and so the limo driver just he's pretending to be this professor, and he just opens up, going to take questions from the audience, and somebody in the audience has this very intricate, deep question about the area of expertise, and the limo driver, pretending to be the egghead, he says, that question is so simple to answer. It is, in fact, it's so beneath me. I'm going to have my limo driver, who's sitting over here, answer the question. And this is what this sheriff is like. It's like a guy who has no clue what he's even doing or anything about his capacity as sheriff. This is a side note, but even his wrong answer was wrong on what branch of government he operates under, because he said, the county, because I'm sheriff for the county. But that isn't even really, it's obviously wrong, but he doesn't even operate as somebody under the county government because he's an elected official. That would be like saying, a member of Congress, Congressman Burleson, if he were asked, for whom he works or, what branch, of course, he's legislative branch, but saying, Missouri, because that's where I live and that's where I reside and that's the area I represent. Well, no, that's not how that works. But here's the bigger thing. And I can guarantee you this is a problem that vexes a significant portion of the left, a complete lack of knowledge of how our government even works. If you were to go to one of these many protests, these left-wing protests, the old people that sit out in front of the VA on Republic Road with the No King signs and the Project 2025 signs, and you were to ask them some of these basic constitutional questions, I suspect you'd get a very high number of people that don't know the answer to, even the older people. Younger liberals, definitely. But these are the same people that expect us to listen to them as they characterize Donald Trump as a king in terms of how he is operating as president. If you don't even understand how it is that our government is supposed to function, how can you judge how anyone is operating in their capacity as an elected official? You don't even know what they're supposed to be doing. This is a guy, and he's a left-winger, and some of the questions that he was going to be asked had to do with ICE and immigration reform, and I'm sure that he has his opinions about the, quote, constitutionality of the president utilizing ICE to do this and that, but he can't even tell you how many branches of government there are. How can we listen to people's opinions regarding how any elected official is operating and the use of, he's a dictator, he's doing this and that, when you don't even understand what the jobs are or what jobs exist or what branches of government there are? This would be like a person who doesn't even, know the very basics, like how to check your oil in your car. and then lecturing an ASE certified mechanic on how it is that they're doing the job wrong. Like, you don't even know where the oil goes. It's also insightful regarding the mindset of people on the left and the Democrat Party. None of that is relevant to them. You see, if they really truly were worried about, oh, Donald Trump, he's trying to act like a king and a dictator, they would do research. He issues some executive order. Huh. Well, now what exactly is an executive order? I should look at how has it been used in the past? What is the purpose of it? They don't care about any of that stuff. Because they just care about power. This is why when Joe Biden brags about defying the Supreme Court over their decision and, the student loan situation, they cheer that on. But if Donald Trump even criticizes the court, he's doing something dictatorial. He's tearing up the very fabric of our Constitution. See, you and I, we note their hypocrisy quite often, that when their guy does it or their gal does it, they celebrate it. But if the exact same thing is done with the opposition, they say it's unconstitutional, it's a dictatorship. And so we see the hypocrisy there, but it's not really hypocrisy for them. It's good versus evil, and it's just about they should be able to do whatever they want. Balance of power, none of that stuff. Judicial review, none of that is relevant. Now, it is relevant if they can use it to further their advancement for power, which is why they use the term fascist and they talk about constitutionality and balance. We don't have kings in this country. You just can't do this and that. It's a marketing message. The reason that there's such a disproportionately high number of people on the left who have no concept of our government is because it's not relevant to them. The branches of government, what the responsibilities are, and why it was set up the way that it was. Same thing with the electoral college system, which many of you may not be extremely well versed in, and you can be forgiven for this because this is also a massive recognition of what a failure our public school systems have been. You can have a guy who's a sheriff who doesn't even know that we have 3 branches of government. Where did he go to school? I can guarantee he wasn't homeschooled. He's a product of government taxpayer dollars. But if you don't care about it, to the point of the Electoral College and why, the whole idea of a quote national vote for president, they say, oh well, it's antiquated, or it's built in racism. They have no idea. They don't care why the electoral system was set up. All that they know is that it, in their minds, had prevented them from having total and complete power of the White House and winning absolutely every election in the future that they want to. And so that's why they want to get rid of that system. They don't have to know why it exists, whether it makes sense or not. All they know is it is a roadblock to their complete grasp of power on the executive branch. This isn't surprising to me that you have an elected Democrat that doesn't know the very basic fundamentals of his role or just the role of government. But the further wide view here is the recognition that that people on the left, they don't care about that stuff. It's irrelevant to them. It is a lack of desire to know about it. Do you think that this guy Is this some epiphany that he's ignorant to this stuff and he's going to go on some quest to really make sure he's educated on understanding how our government works? No, because he doesn't care. He cares about power. And when I think about how ignorant an individual like this is as a sheriff, the top law enforcement officer of the county, this county in North Carolina, and people on the left argue that only people like him in government should have firearms. How scary is that? Sarah Myers.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. It's been a while since I've mentioned this service, but with the warmer weather, it's back on my radar, and that is indoor air quality testing. If you are a person who suffers from allergies, the Foreman team, they may be able to help you out. I have not utilized this service, but I really should. Between the farm animals and just country living in general, I am surrounded by allergens, and you can always tell when I spend the day outside. You can just hear it in my voice in the morning, and I've heard great things about this service. In fact, one of my coworkers utilized this service, and he raves about it. Now, the Foreman team, they can help identify allergens within your home, and then they come up with a solution to get you just breathing a little easier. So, when you call them out for your annual HVAC maintenance, or maybe the next time they're out for a repair, make sure to mention the indoor air quality testing as well. Now, you can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at KSGF.com.
Well, I tell you, the left, their prediction that Donald Trump's election would cause the stock market to crash is really coming into focus today. It's over 50,000. The Dow, 50,465 right now, or, bouncing around there. Is insane. A couple of good bits of news here for equality in terms of application of the law. A Los Angeles-based federal judge blocked California from enforcing a law that would require ICE agents to remove masks during immigration enforcement operation. That's because they're federal enforcement. And clearly there's no jurisdiction here. You don't get to. I can't believe this even has to be argued. As a random state, dictate for all of the rest of us how it is that a division of the federal government operates. I mean, do they get to also decide how the IRS operates? California? Because Gavin Newsom thinks that he's king. You want to talk about no kings? This is a guy who feels that he has jurisdiction over federal immigration laws. As for the rest of us, we don't see the way that representation works is we all collectively, we vote and we elect a president, and the president over the executive branch makes those decisions. That's how we have representation in that capacity. In Gavin Newsom's world, only people in California should actually have that representation when it comes to federal agencies like ICE. He is the great king. And so a Los Angeles-based federal judge said, no, it doesn't work that way. A federal appeals court in San Francisco granted a stay allowing the government to proceed with terminating temporary protected status for immigrants in Nepal, Honduras, and Nicaragua. The reliably liberal Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals issued an order freezing a lower court ruling that would have vacated Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's decision to end the protection. The court found the government was likely to succeed on the grounds that the DHS decision was not arbitrary or capricious, suggesting that the decision-making process was rational. So 2 victories. And by the way, those and people on the left, they're saying, look, they're trying to even deport people who are here illegally by taking away their temporary protected status. Yes, the operative word here is temporary. Apparently, with the willy-nilly nature in which the left treats words and changes their definition, there needs to be a revisit of what temporary means.